Wouldn't you like to know how to craft a life that you want to be living in? Right? And that is what we're going to talk about today. Lori Saitz of zenrabbit.com has this answer for us and a 3-step process. So, with her Trilogy of Success process, she is going to explain to us, even through her own lived experience of losing her mom and having to lose her first business or put it to bed at the same time in her life, how she was able to still be creating a life worth living in that she wanted to be a part of. And she's going to explain to us how we can be doing that for ourselves. And not only that, you guys, she shares an exercise during the podcast today. And on top of that, has given us links to a bunch of freebies, her meditations, and a download to help you get started. This is a podcast not to miss, and I can't wait for you to hear it.
I know your deep, dark secret. You don't like your life. You're a woman in midlife, and for the past 2 decades or more, you've poured yourself in to other people. You've poured yourself into your career, your family, and yet on the inside, you feel broken. And that's no way to be. I'm Dr. Natalie Marr. I'm a clinical psychologist and a life transition expert. It wasn't too long ago that I was in your shoes, waking up in my early 40s, thinking I've got 2 failed marriages and I'm a single mom for the second time in my life. And I just knew that I could do better, that I could feel better. Fortunately for you, I have about 20 years experience clinically. And so I've created a method that will help you learn to love your story. I know that the story that you're telling yourself about your life feels awful. And I know that you think that you can't change that. I assure you, you can. And when we work together, I'm gonna help you to craft a different story, a story that you love, a story that makes you wanna get up every single day.
Let me introduce you to Miss Lori Saitz. She is the founder and CEO of Zen Rabbit, an award-winning writer, speaker, and broadcaster. Lori is on a mission to teach the world to be calm and grounded no matter what's going on. Can you think of a better skill set to be teaching in the world today? As a nationally recognized gratitude and meditation expert, she guides entrepreneurs and corporate teams from stressed and chaotic to peaceful and focused. Through a collaborative and interactive approach, she provides tools and techniques for increasing sales, enhancing relationships, and improving overall health. When she's not working, you can find Lori in her sanctuary, aka the weight room at the gym. She also loves cupcakes, Thai food, and classic rock music. Does it seem like it all goes together? Well, the beauty of Lori Saitz is you're going to learn today why it does. So tell me a little bit about you.
Yeah, where to start? Background, most of my professional background is in marketing, corporate communications, and some broadcast. And yeah, started my first business in 2003, was making and marketing a product called the Gratitude Cookie, which was based on a family recipe that as a marketer, I made it. I didn't want to be the next Mrs. Fields. My goal was to create a product for businesses to say thank you to their clients and people who supported their success. So I did that through customized packaging, created a retail package, had dreams of seeing this on the shelves of Starbucks. That didn't happen. Because primarily, well, I mean, I'm sure I probably could have made it happen, but my pricing, they were so labor intensive to make that I couldn't get to a wholesale price that would have been, I mean, maybe I could have, but at the time I didn't really know how to do that. Yeah. To get to a price where I could sell it to them, still make a profit, and have them be able to mark it up 40 or 50 or 60%, whatever they do.
Sure.
Yeah. But amazing product. Ran that business for 11 years, shut it down when I couldn't scale it the way I would have liked. And yeah. And then started teaching networking strategies. Then pandemic, nobody was going to networking events.
And so that changed. That's a major pivot.
Yeah. I just keep pivoting.
Well, as many of us have had to do, right? Like this pandemic stuff has just been, it's been terrible. It's been wonderful in some ways because of its major pattern interruption. Like it made us all take a good look at our life and say,
right,
I don't know, do I want to do something different here? Because now's the time to do that. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And that's how I came to the idea of what I've been working on lately, which is the whole Fuck Being Fine program, because people have had this time to evaluate and go, everything's fine, but that's not good enough.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Now I want more.
Yeah.
Well, so my first question always tell us your story. Just start there. Like, who's Lori? Give us an idea. My whole spiel is learn to love your story. And so I am helping empower women in midlife in particular, but women to really just take the whole of themselves and love it all up. Because that's where our power is. And that's how we can step into, in this midlife portion of our life, really step into designing a life of our dreams. So I always start by asking my guests, what's your story? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh, it's my story. Wow. I'm back when I was a kid, I was super shy. Like there's the story on my website of the time, like all of my report cards said, Lori is very, very bright, but she needs to learn how to speak up in class. Because I was never confident enough to believe that I had the right answer, even though I did, but I didn't want to embarrass myself by maybe I didn't have the right answer.
Yeah. Yeah. That's interesting. So you started out shy because you're not doing anything shy right now. Doesn't seem.
No. And that people don't they can't believe that that's who I was, but that's who I was for most of my childhood. And I remember the minute my parents drove away from dropping me off at college, and I started college as a broadcast major, and I went straight to the TV station and was like, hey, what's going on here? So
this is divergent from when you were little.
Well, and at the same time though, actually a lot of broadcasters and professional speakers are very introverted. And I'm not a big fan of the terms introvert and extrovert because there's so much baggage attached to them and misconception around what they really mean. But people like Howard Stern, you listen to him on the radio and you think he's not introverted at all, but he is very averse to hanging out with people outside of the studio.
Yep. I like to give a little psychology lesson because, I have to have all of this history and systems knowledge to have a doctorate, but what do you do with it? Literally nothing. But Myers-Briggs, which is what created that idea of introversion and extroversion, what people don't know is it was a woman and her daughter, turn of the 19th century, that created that survey. And it didn't have a lot of psychometrics that supported it. It just didn't. Good ideas, but didn't have a lot of psychometrics. Now, since then, we've fine-tuned it to have a little bit more psychometrics. It doesn't look anything like it did originally, but still, I think that's why it doesn't sit well for people. It was too, here's your boxes. Are you in this box or this box? And lots of us have aspects to ourselves that we do need some introverted energy repair and restore time to ourselves. But connection is literally a human wired need. So you can't go without your connection with people. But what that looks like does vary person to person. For some of us, we can get a lot of that connection in big, broad groups. And for others of us, we feel the most alone when we're in big, broad groups and we just need our people. Right. So I don't like those terms either. I'm happy to hear others see there's just limitations. It's too, too neat and clean to put us in those boxes.
I recently heard that about Myers-Briggs. It wasn't based on any scientific studies or anything like that. There's a book, the first book I ever read by Dr. Benjamin Hardy, who I'm a big fan of his, is called Personality Isn't Permanent. And he talks in there about how all of these tests try to put people in boxes, but they're not really accurate and you don't have to accept it.
No. It's really, even when I was doing testing, I don't do testing anymore, although I still teach it to graduate students. But even when I was doing it, I would tell people, this is legit a snapshot. You know how you go to the doctor and you get your blood drawn or you pee in a cup and they come back and they say, today your CBC panel looked good. Today,
Right.
your blood sugar is great, but when we compared it to your A1C, maybe not. So it's the same kind of principle. It's just what you're telling me today is kind of the constellation of things that are bothering you, not bothering you, and your personality is constructed to manage those things for yourself. But gosh, I could give it to you in 6 months and you might say something very different, or a different test in 6 months and you might say and show me something very, very different. So no, we're not married to that. We're not married to anything, which is why we're here, right?
That's right. We can be anything or anybody we would like to be.
Exactly. Oh my goodness. Okay. So let me go to my next question. What inspired you to start helping women?
So it's funny, when I started my podcast 2 years ago, I thought my audience was going to be women in mid 40s, 50s. I'm not a big fan of the term midlife either.
I know. Like centered life. This is my new term I'm going for. Centered life.
I like that. I thought that's who my audience was going to be. And that's who I had as guests. But I found out that people of other ages and genders were also listening. So I'm not 100% focused on just helping women, because I'm actually seeing a lot of the same issues with men in terms of feeling, where am I going now? I've gotten here. And first of all, how did the last 25 years go by so fast? Hold on. What just happened? I graduated from high school and college. How
a blink ago? Blink.
Right.
I'm sitting at like my nieces and nephews' weddings and graduations, and I'm like, when did this happen? What?
Yeah, it was just me like a couple years ago. There's some kind of time warp happening.
There must be.
Right. So, but yes, I mean, getting to this place where we're saying everything's fine because it's fine. Nothing's terrible. Nobody's, pulling. I mean, we might be like running around with our hair on fire, but
some days,
some days, right? But life is not terrible. And a lot of people look at their life and wonder what they have to complain about, but they're still feeling this undercurrent of suck. And so then they start beating themselves up because they're like, well, why can't I be happy with this? Look what I have. I have this great family, relationship, career, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
Why am I not happy with this? So then they go, there must be something wrong with me.
And there's not. There's just something
and so
wrong.
That's what threw me into,
yes.
All right. Because I was there. I've been there. And a lot of my friends have been there. And now what can we do to move forward? How do we craft a path that is a life that we would like to lead? And this came about for me in 2014 when I was shutting down my first business because I couldn't scale it quite the way I would have liked. At the same time, my mom was diagnosed with an acute form of leukemia and passed away 6 weeks later. So now I'm mourning the death of my mom and my business at the same time. And I'm asking myself, okay, do I want to live the next 20 years the same way I lived the last 20? And again, the last 20 were not terrible. They were fine.
Yeah.
And what will I do differently moving forward?
Mm-hmm. So I want you to answer the question that you asked. And I think you said, how can I craft, or how can we craft a life that we want to be living in? What's your answer to that? Because that is kind of the ultimate question, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It takes a couple of steps. The first one is being grateful for what you have and recognizing that you have things to be grateful for, no matter how little or how much you have or how bleak your life looks. There are things to be grateful for. So 1, finding the gratitude. 2, getting in touch with your inner voice, whatever you want to call inner voice, higher power, intuition, whatever that is, because that is where the answers are.
Yeah.
And so many people nowadays, I sound like I'm 100 years old, right? Nowadays.
I'm so with you on this though. Like seriously,
we're so distracted that we don't give ourselves space to hear that inner voice. we're always connected somehow to electronics. We're hearing everybody else's voices outside of ours and not hearing our own. But when you get in touch with that inner voice, that's where your truth lies. What is true for you? What is your next step? And so tapping into that inner voice, the way I do it is through meditation. And that's not the only way.
Oh, but that's such a good way. It's such a good way. It's scientifically such a good way that, I mean, obviously our Western science is catching up to what the Eastern science has been telling us for millennia, but absolutely meditation builds up the parts of our frontal lobe that have that capacity to just stay in that, executive functioning space. And even, when we're doing something that we've been doing every day forever and ever and say it's fine, it catches us and looks at the bigger picture and says, is it fine though? Like, grand scheme of things, maybe up until this point, yeah, fine. And now is it, or is there more that we want to do here? So I like that. I love that.
Right. And then once you hear that, once you're open and able to hear that voice, you're going to hear things. This is why I think people don't want to hear it. You're going to hear things that maybe don't make sense to you. Like, what I'm supposed to do, that seems scary or crazy or whatever it is. So then the third thing you need is courage to follow the voice. And I'm not talking like crazy.
So it's great, voices, like gratefulness, self-awareness. Is that what the second one was?
I call it connection.
Gratefulness, connection, and courage. I like that.
Those are actually the 3 pillars of my program. I call it the Trilogy for Success.
Got it. And I can totally see that. I think the gratefulness piece is a really great starting point, really. I talk a lot about compassionate self-awareness. And I would say that's like, when you have gratitude, you're creating that compassion for yourself and for others, right?
Yes.
And it helps you to bring that uniqueness to the self-awareness, because you're right. You're going to have some courage to step into stuff. And I think that one of the places we back down, even within our own internal limiting belief dialogue, is just in that first beginning part, like, well, I should have done this earlier. I should have known better. Or I put myself in this position. So, who am I now to step into something else? I'll opt out. I was interviewing somebody the other day, and they were speaking to this thing about, like, it was almost painful for them to put themselves in an idea of, I get to choose for me. Like, that's the place that they ended up after years and years of sacrificing for the family and for the kids and doing all the right things. Like, these are the women I've been interviewing. It's remarkable. Like, I mean, you guys carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders, and did all the right stuff by all accounts, but as did I. Except that we're not feeling satisfied. But you're right. Then we kind of go to this thing of, did I do something wrong? If I don't feel satisfied, is it because of me versus is it because I'm, not stepping into making some courageous decisions for myself?
I think it's a matter of stepping back and recognizing that everything is right. Whatever choice you made was the right one. There's a guy I follow on Instagram. His name is Peter Crone, and he's known as the Mind Architect. And he has this quote that I absolutely love. It's what happened and couldn't have happened in the other way because it didn't.
Yeah. That's
you got to think about that for a second. But this is why it doesn't make any sense, or it's not worth it to beat yourself up for things that happened in the past. You can't go back and change them. Yeah. They happened that way for a reason. Whatever. Like, I know people get angry sometimes when you're like, everything happens for a reason. It doesn't. Well, it kind of does. Whether you want to accept that or not, the fact is you can't go back and change it. All you can do is accept, this is where I am today. Now what?
That's right. And you will win or you will succeed. It just depends on which way you're thinking. Like, you're right. No matter what you think, if you think it's not going to work, it won't work. If you think it's going to work, it'll figure out a way to work. Like, that's totally true. Your mind will just follow what you tell it can do. It just doesn't know bounds. We've been taught all these boundaries. And so I think we get kind of stuck in that old limiting side of things. But really, our brain is just going to follow what we tell it to do. There will be barriers, but that's where the courage comes in, correct?
Well,
right?
Right. And then there's a piece that I didn't mention, and that is the rewiring of your brain, because all of these things, like, you can be grateful, and gratitude will help rewire your brain, because it will help you see things. The more you are grateful for, the more you see things to be grateful for, the more things to be grateful for will show up in your life. It works the other way around as well. When you find lots of things to complain and criticize, more of those will show up in your life. That's why people who are like stuck in a rut will stay stuck in a rut, because all they see is the rut.
Yeah.
But when you start reaching out for finding gratitude, what you're doing from an energetic standpoint is raising your energetic vibration.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think you're really insulating, which goes to my next question, but I think you are really insulating that negativity emotively really does suck us in. So it's sometimes hard to pattern interrupt when we're looking for the next wrong thing to be happening, because we're in that funk. Yes. And this practice of gratitude really is exercising kind of the counterbalance to that. So I really love that's how your program starts out. But my question is, what are some common challenges that you see women that you're working with, or men that you're working with, face?
A couple of things. We touched on this a minute ago, is the beliefs. It's the limiting beliefs. Those can't be changed by just thinking I can change them. That you're trying to change things at a conscious level, but those beliefs are deep rooted in the other than conscious mind. And they were programmed there since birth. So it's a matter of actually rewiring, creating new neural pathways in your brain to believe different things that serve you better. And so that's like the main thing that holds people back, is trying to overcome those beliefs with methods that don't work.
Right.
I'm not a fan of affirmations for this reason, because you can walk around repeating I'm rich, or I'm wealthy, or I'm lovable, or whatever all day long, but your conscious mind is going, but no, you're not. But no, you're not.
Yeah. Yeah. And it, like, aligning those comes through that emotive piece, which gratitude is, right?
Yeah,
gratitude, a mindset shift alone. It's an emotional shift.
Right.
So when you can get your feeling state behind what you're saying in an affirmation, that's what, like, Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about when he's talking about, that's where the change happens. Yes. You can say it all you'd like to say it, but if you don't actually believe it, the limiting belief is what will guide that. But if you can emotively get yourself to change, that's why I think it's just that's such a strong way right out the gate in that 3-step system for you, because it really starts to align for people emotively. How do I start believing in what I'm saying? I have to practice that. I have to practice believing that I have way more to be grateful for in this world than I do not. But I've got to train my brain to look for it, and then my emotions will follow with that.
Exactly. Would you like me to share an exercise to help people?
I'd love that. Yes, please.
All right, cool. So next time you catch yourself complaining or criticizing, because again, we're human, we do it. Catch yourself and say, but I'm grateful for, and then find whatever you can find to be grateful for. It doesn't even have to be related to the thing you're complaining about, but I'm grateful for. Yeah. And have you ever heard that it's not a good idea to use the word but?
Yes, because it negates the first part of the sentence, but I can see how you're doing it strategically.
Exactly.
That's awesome.
Exactly why we're doing it. So,
and it's good. I'm so glad you brought that up, because my listeners would be like, why did she not say anything about that? Because she's always telling us to use and. Because for me, I also am trying to help people hold paradox. It's okay that seemingly opposite things can be true. They truly can. And the more tolerance we have for that not feeling even, like, just say and, like, this is true and what do I have to be grateful for? Like, let's focus on that. But I like how you're using it as a strategy, because it really negates then the first half of whatever you're thinking.
Right.
That's
and
great.
It puts the focus on the second part.
Mm-hmm.
This is something that anybody who's listening, the more you do this, the more naturally grateful you become, and you will just start seeing things, more and more things to be grateful for.
Yes.
Even in situations where in the past you would have gone into a rage or you would have been frustrated, whatever it is, you will more naturally go to gratitude.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that was beautiful. Thank you. And thank you for sharing. I really appreciate that. Mm-hmm. So what advice do you give women in midlife who feel like they're stuck and they're not sure what they want to do when they're trying to build this life that they love?
I love this question because so many of us are waiting for our purpose to show up like it's an Amazon package at our doorstep.
So true, though. So true. I haven't found my purpose yet. Yeah. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, that's interesting.
Right. My advice is start doing something. What is even moderately interesting to you? Start saying yes to more things. And that sounds crazy. Like people are gonna be like, say yes to more things. I'm already so busy. But that's not what I mean. I mean, say yes to opportunities or things that show up for you that your normal response might be, no, I'm not interested, or no, that's not for me. Be open to new experiences. That's really what I'm saying.
Okay.
And take the opportunity when it shows up. For example, I met somebody through LinkedIn, actually reached out to her because she had badass in her title. In her description of who she was. And we had a Zoom call. It was fantastic. At the end of the call, she ended up telling me she was going to introduce me to a friend of hers who lives locally to me. So then that woman and I got on a call and we were talking. And at the end of it, she said, hey, I'm part of this indoor rock climbing group. Would you like to join us? We're going next week. We go once a month. And I've never been indoor rock climbing before. And I said, yes. Well, guess what? I freaking love indoor rock climbing now.
That's so cool. Oh, I love it.
Yeah. And so when you're looking for, I get that rock climbing is not my purpose. However, it led me to something that I would have never been introduced to before. And it brings me great joy because when you're on the wall, for one thing, meditation is one thing, but being on the wall, wondering how to reach the next you are not thinking about anything else. There are no other thoughts in your head. And there's not a lot that can get you to that place.
No,
so
I'm certain a very mindfulness practice in that way, because it would not be safe to be anything but mindful while rock climbing. Yeah. I mean, you're in your gear. I get it, but still.
Right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's a matter of saying yes to these new experiences and opportunities and just crawling your way through because you don't know where it's going to lead. Right. A new job opportunity or somebody says something about a new career path or I don't know, just take it. Take a class, watch a video, read a book, whatever it is that you are being shown. And see, this comes back to getting in touch with your inner voice because little pieces of things will start showing up.
Mm-hmm.
Things you think are a coincidence or a synchronicity, they start showing up. And if you say yes to those things, it will lead you down a path that you would have never found by just sitting on the couch thinking, what am I going to do next?
Right. Right. My new kind of spin on this within my own group coaching community is to say, you are your life's purpose. Mm-hmm. And when we center ourselves, then the content of what we're doing at any given time aligns in our purpose, right? But the content can flow and change. I would definitely tell you that for the last 20 years, the major part of my purpose was raising children. I still have an 8-year-old at home. It's shifting now because one of those children is now moved out and, starting his adult life. But I don't think that my life's purpose is to be a mom. Right. Mm-hmm, but I think I'm my life's purpose. And within the context of my life purpose, that was a big part of it for a long time. Being a psychologist, part of that for a long time. But I've almost I think it kind of trumps it all when we can think of it that way. Like you are the purpose what you're doing in that purpose will feel in alignment at different times in your life, like sometimes it will be rock climbing, sometimes it will be art, sometimes it will be a role like parenting or a job or something like that. But that ebbs and flows with the seasons of our life. What doesn't ebb and flow is that we are at the center of all of that.
Right. Who you are at your core doesn't change. How you express it changes.
Yeah.
And I think that's where people get confused as to what is my life purpose. I don't know that your life has one specific purpose of, like you said, being a parent, being a psychologist, being a sailor, whatever it is. Those are things that you do and that make up who you are.
Right.
But when coming back to what is your purpose? To me, the purpose of life for everyone is to experience it. Life is an experiment. Life is an experiment. So there are no right and wrong, success and failure in the way that we traditionally define those things.
Right.
Everything is an experience. And if it doesn't turn out the way you expected it to, it's an experiment.
Yeah. Yeah. And I can totally concur with that. That's just, like life is a gift in many ways, but I think that we've been, I was saying to you, I think before we started even recording today, that COVID's been tough for a lot of us, but one of its like inner gifts was it interrupted the pattern of how we were living life prior to this. And life, if it was feeling like a drag, was feeling like a chore, was feeling more like a responsibility that you could barely make yourself get out of bed for in the morning. It really gave us this gift of, is that where you want to continue to be? Because if you don't want to continue to be there, there's going to have to be a lot of shifting, but now is the time to take that opportunity. And for some of us, we've done that like gangbusters. And for others, there's been a lot of the limiting beliefs that held us back into old patterns. And so hopefully, people like yourself and I are giving women and men, opportunities to get coached in how to do this differently, how to step into our own courage and out of our trapped lives that way. Because life is, you're right, it's like just an ongoing experiment. It's a gift. It's something fun. You get to play with it. If you made a choice and you were totally 100% sure that was the choice to make, and then 5 years in, you're like, this doesn't feel great anymore. Great. That's fine. Then it had a 5-year shelf life. Let's keep going.
Yeah. It might have a 5-minute shelf life.
Exactly.
It really doesn't matter. You can change your
Exactly.
mind. I was talking to somebody the other day and I was saying, really the only decision that's not reversible or changeable is that one to have children. Like you can't go, let me give you back.
Let me kind of do parenting. I don't want to you can't really do that.
Yes, there are people who do that. I get it. But really, like you can't stuff them back in. Like they still exist. So there's that. And then that person I was talking to said, yeah, and murder. I'm like, okay, true. Murder cannot be reversed.
Accurate.
Everything else, any other choice or decision, you can change it.
Yeah.
It didn't work out the way you thought it would. Make a different choice.
Do something else.
Yeah.
Pivot. Yeah. But I definitely just think, and again, I'm more centric to the women than just the general population, but there's some really strong gender norming for women around role, right? And so midlife is the pattern disruptor for us. And so it's a natural time for us to start to question that. Like, I think it's killer whales and human females are the only females that live past menopause.
Really?
Yes. Every other species, there's no more purpose for the grandmothers.
Oh, wow.
But our two species have lots of purpose for the grandmothers.
I believe that for women in this time, this is when we're stepping into our power because we finally feel confident enough in who we are to say, hey, this is who I am. And that doesn't mean this is who I am, accept me, I'm not going to change. It means I feel comfortable in who I am now.
Right. No, completely. I think it's for those of us who went through COVID and are in that midlife menopausal, whatever centered life stage, it was kind of a doozy because it was all of that coming at us at once. And stepping into our power, though, it like frees us from a lot of things. Then you're just choosing your life instead of living a life you're told.
The whole joke about Gen X, like, come on, we were the ones who were raised like a pack of wolves on our own. And now it just occurred to me as you were saying that. Okay, now we're like going through menopause and midlife and whatever. Like, yeah, okay, come on.
Come on. I know.
We are going to be like, we're the toughest of all the generations.
I have a friend that is just early 30s, but had something happen where had to have a hysterectomy. And I think she has like maybe one ovary, but not both. And so she was put into menopause early. So she's having symptoms like I'm having symptoms, but I'm 47. And I talk about them constantly. Like just I'm like, why does it why do I need to have a fan this close to my face to put my makeup on in the morning where it will slide off my face? And she's like, yeah, I didn't know that you could just talk about those things. Like that is not something our generation just does. Like I'm in a public bathroom just whining about something with her. And I'm like, listen, Gen Xers couldn't care less what you think of what we have to say. Not to mention nobody ever listened to us anyway. So we just were talking about all the things anyway. Like parents didn't care. Nobody was caring.
But that's funny because I feel like the younger generations are far more open to talking about a lot more than we are. Yeah. I mean, we are getting there now, but we never have before. Like, the conversations that my friends have had with their kids about everything.
Yeah.
I'm like,
there are a lot of things, thankfully, that they keep evolving too.
Yeah. I love it.
They are. I love it. I love it too. But I think that they're just, they're not enough of us talking about the changes of life for females. And it's constant. It is constant in our adult life, that those hormonal changes. We need to just make it normal to be talking about. Well,
I think our generation is definitely doing that because you did not hear about it before. And now this is part of us stepping into who we are and owning it and being like, hey, let me tell you about this.
Let me tell you about this. This is a raw deal. No. Who decided? This does not seem okay to me. So tell me about how your services specifically help women embrace their unique strengths and use them to achieve their goals and create a fulfilling life.
It goes
for women and men.
All of them. But yes, I do work with a lot of women because women are more likely to raise their hand and say, I need help.
That's interesting. I see that.
So, and in terms of helping them, it comes back to those 3 pillars of gratitude and mostly getting in. How do you connect with yourself, with your own inner voice and hear what it's telling you and then follow what it's telling you? And how do you get in touch with it? So we touched on meditation, which there are so many myths and misconceptions around that as well. And we were talking earlier about introvert, extrovert, but what is meditation? And so I spend a lot of time talking about or dispelling the myth that meditation is this one thing, sitting on a mat, cross-legged in total silence with no thoughts running through your head for hours at a time. That may be one form of meditation. And that's what people think of when they think, and they say, I'm not good at meditation. And so one of the big pieces is helping my clients realize what can serve as meditation for them, even if it doesn't look like that. Yeah.
Oh, I appreciate that you help women or help your clients to see it that way, because there is it seems like such an ethereal, huge thing, this idea of meditation, but there's such, strong definitions that it must be the Buddhist monk level, right? And honestly, 2 minutes of focusing on your breath does wonders for your brain. In fact, the law of diminishing returns says that after about 15 to 20 minutes of true meditation, like getting your brain to be focused on one thing, there's not such exponential benefits after that. So it's not even a huge time commitment. I tell my clients, like, I'm talking about, could I get you to 15 to 20 minutes a day? If you could do that twice a day, awesome. But honestly, if you do 15 to 20 minutes a day, you're right in that you're getting the 80% of the effectiveness of it. And that's amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah. Dr. Andrew Huberman has research that shows that 3 minutes a day, as little as 3 minutes a day, has significant benefit. 3 minutes. And so, whether it's 3 minutes or 15 or 20 minutes, that investment of time makes you so much more focused, creative, resilient, productive, that essentially what you're doing is buying back time, because something that might have taken you an hour could potentially take you 20 or 30 minutes. So now you just bought yourself a half an hour.
Right.
There's nothing else that does that. It's not time management. Time management is not what makes you more productive. It's this, what we're talking about, managing your inner thoughts and emotions and all of that. That is the true productivity maximizer.
It completely. And ironically, we've been marketed to have ADHD. Why does everybody have attention problems? Because that's literally, we're being barraged with things all the time. Right. We're being barraged all the time, and our brain adapted to that. And now it's like popcorn,
our brain has not adapted to it.
Well, it's not adapting well, but it's trying, because that's what it does. It's just okay, give me that stimulus, then that's what I'll try to do. And so we're trying to counterbalance that with the meditation, which actually then gives you way more control over this thing, which then makes everything better for you.
Yeah. In fact, that refocusing, the part that people think makes them not good at meditation because they can't focus, because the thoughts are carrying them away. Every time you have a thought and you see, oh, I'm getting carried away by a thought, and you refocus back to your breathing or the meditation teacher's voice, that actually makes you more focused outside of meditation.
Yes.
That is a key piece of meditation. And people think that that's what makes them not good at it. That's what maximizes the benefit of meditation.
Exactly. It's like weight training. That's the strength. That's the rep, right? So my mind wanders, but I pull it back in is the rep. And so if you're going to strength train your brain, the more your brain wanders, you're just doing more reps than anybody else, right? Until you get it, to dial in and be able to just hold that space. But even the best of meditation people are still doing that. The brain has a default mode network that's supposed to be scanning your environment at all time. It's a survival strategy. So of course it's going to do that. You're just trying to build the reps around pulling it back in.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Oh, this has been a great conversation. Thank you so much for joining us today. Let my listeners know how they're going to be able to find you.
It's my pleasure to be here, and they can find me at my website, which is zenrabbit.com. That's the name of my company, Zen, Z-E-N, rabbit like a bunny, zenrabbit.com.
And of course, I'll have all those connections in the notes as well, so people can easily click on that and find you.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, not a problem. Is there anything I didn't ask or anything you'd like to be able to share with my listeners?
The one thing I will mention is when you come to the website, you can download a PDF of the 5 easy ways to start living a sabbatical life.
Ooh, I'm going to download that. I like this idea.
Yes. Awesome. And you can also find some 10-minute meditations there as well. So
good.
What we're talking about, the meditation.
Just what we were talking about.
Simple, easy 10-minute meditations.
I love it. I'm always looking for more resources to send people. Cause everybody's got a different way they do their stuff. And some of my stuff just doesn't resonate for all of my listeners. So thank you. Thank you very much, Lori.
Thanks for having me.
Wasn't that amazing? I told you she's amazing. She gave us so many tools today. So I hope, and I promise you, you will not be disappointed by taking this information, going to our website, zenrabbit.com, downloading the things that she's given you is a great example of where you can get started. These are tools right there available to you for free. So I hope that you enjoyed the podcast. I hope that you bookmark this podcast and come back to it because it was jam-packed with all kinds of goodies. And I hope this helps you on your journey to learning to love your story. All right. So I'm adding a little addition here. It's the legal stuff. Just so you're aware, nothing in any of these podcasts constitutes actual psychotherapy. Yes, I am a licensed clinical psychologist in the state of Minnesota, but everything here is just educational in nature and is a suggestion of things that you could be doing in your own life to learn how to love the life that you're in instead of waiting for a life that you're dreaming of to come towards you. So just remember, this is not therapy. And if ever you need any resources for mental health, look in my notes and I'll always have a little blurb at the bottom where you can click on a link and get those services for yourself.